Okay, good evening, everyone. We're bang on time, and my name's Phil Stocker. I'm the Chief Executive of the National Sheep Association. I'm pleased to welcome you to this evening's webinar, which is all about giving some practical solutions. We've got some presentations and then a discussion about what you can do in the event of a dog attack on your sheep, including cases of sheep worrying as well as direct sheep attacks by dogs. This webinar this evening is part of the NSA's Raising Awareness Week on the topic of dog attacks and sheep worrying. We've got a range of activities planned for this week, including this webinar. We've got a lot of press work going on and social media, and we've launched the results of this year's, the NSA's annual survey. This is actually the 9th survey that we've done, annual survey, since 2013. And we've been active on this subject now for well over a decade. And actually, in fact, all the speakers that are with us this evening has been on that journey with us, have been a part of this work and been very influential in the work that's been done. I was going to say the progress we've made, and we have made progress, even though if you look at some of the numbers of dog attacks, you might question that, but we have made real progress. Different to other years, this year's survey we focused on police forces rather than farmers, and our survey has all been about farmers over the previous years. But last year's survey in 2013, we heard from farmers that the cases were on the increase, and that there was some despondency out there amongst farmers, with more saying that they were moving away from reporting because they weren't sure that anything was being done about it. And that was one of the reasons why we this year focused our survey on police and police forces. And we found that over that year, the survey has shown that that more of our police forces have got rural crime teams now, so that's a good thing. They've really grown over the last few years. We found also that sheep attacks are the most commonly reported rural crime. Now, that's not good news, apart from the fact that the more that they are reported, the more seriously police forces are going to take this crime. But there's more sheep attacks being reported to rural crime teams than there are theft crimes or fly tipping or hare courses and hare coursing and wildlife crimes as well. So it is up there at the top in terms of importance in terms of rural crime. There's some progress being made on it legally as well with what was going to be the Kept Animals Bill that was going through Parliament 18 months ago now, I guess, being pulled by the government some time ago, but that now going forward under a private member's bill, a Dogs Protection of Livestock bill. And Rob Taylor, who's going to speak in a moment, has been heavily involved in that. It's currently going through its second reading, and it will definitely increase police powers. So, as I've said, all the speakers tonight have been part of this journey, and I'm going to just introduce Rob Taylor. Rob Taylor has to leave fairly soon, in about 15 minutes, so we're going to go straight into Rob's presentation and then maybe take one or two questions specific to Rob, if there are any, before he then leaves us, and we'll move on to Dave Allen and then Emily. And just to introduce Rob, Rob is the Wales Rural and Wildlife Police Crime Coordinator. He's served in the police in Wales now for 38 years. 30 of those as a police officer and 8 as a civilian manager. His previously worked on a police helicopter and as a hostage negotiator, amongst other roles, before becoming involved with wildlife and rural crime in 2007. He was tasked with forming the first UK rural crime team in North Wales, and has since then assisted to start and train several other police forces and teams across the country in setting up rural crime teams. In 2021, he was appointed as the first Welsh wildlife and rural crime coordinator working within the Welsh government, and he's been awarded the Queen's Police Medal in the Queen's 90th birthday honours. So well done, Rob, for all the work that you've done and the effort that you've put into this subject as well is vastly appreciated. So pass over to you, Rob.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Thank you for the introduction. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending today. And I'm really pleased to be here to I'm going to outline a bit of background and a bit of history and where we are now. And then Dave, who's the practitioner here, who's police officer, will go a bit more into the points to look out for and all to do with that. So I haven't got a presentation. I'm just going to talk, and I'd just like to open up and say that this is a huge and significant problem throughout the UK. livestock attacks by dogs is a massive, massive, massive problem. It's something that the police now, with rural crime teams, are dealing with on a daily basis, up and down and across the country. Recent stats from the NFU Mutual have seen that the last year has seen an increase of 100% in Wales alone. And the UK, I believe it's between £2 and £3 million worth in claims. Now, these are just reported in claims. So the NFU Mutual doesn't work on people who are insured with other agencies, and it also doesn't report on people who are not insured. And thirdly, people who don't report. So that I just want to outline that for you. So I'm going to talk a bit about the history of where we're at, how it's come about that we're at this place now, and what we have in the pipeline. Hopefully, a slight bit of optimism for you. So 2013, I was tasked with starting the first dedicated rural crime team in the UK. That's the police rural crime team. It's quite shocking to believe that only 11 years ago, we didn't have any single rural crime teams, dedicated rural crime teams. So if a farmer or somebody that's involved in livestock in any other formats would ring the police, they would get the next available police officer. And quite frankly, you could be getting a police officer who's working on the street or within a busy city and has not got a clue about wildlife or the rural communities or the impact of a livestock attack. We started, and Dave was on the team with me at the same time in 2013. And like I say, we were the only dedicated team in the UK. And it was very, very apparent within a short space of time, as we started to rebuild bridges with our farming communities, that the reports started to come in. And we started to see the true extent, or what we thought at the time was the true extent, of livestock attacks just in North Wales. We were seeing, and I believe North Wales Police, Dave will probably correct me later on, in excess of 100 attacks per year. I think the most we had was 135 reported attacks. So one every 3 days, ranging from 1 or 2 sheep being mauled or killed, up to some cases we had over 30 killed in one go. So we're talking, 400-500 sheep a year mauled or brutally attacked and savaged. And I think people don't realize, and people on this call, of course, you will realize that, we're not just talking a sheep that's chased around a field and looks slightly worried. And that's why we don't like to use the term livestock worrying anymore. It's livestock attack. We're seeing sheep that are actually brutalized, still alive, with faces missing, limbs removed, innards hanging out, and possibly there for many, many hours, because the farmer obviously cannot check on an hourly basis. And particularly in Wales, where you have hillside farms as well, where the sheep can be in remote locations. So really, between myself and Dave, we've been the sort of main protagonists of this since 2013. We started to look at the problem and realize, what could we do about it? And it's a huge problem, like I say. And the main issue to begin with is that the police don't have a requirement to record these statistics. So like Phil said about thefts and criminal damage and things like that, the police do have to legally required to record them via the Home Office. The Home Office, and still to this day, we have no requirement to record statistics. So there were no statistics in the UK to look at sheep attacks or livestock attacks, and this causes a couple of problems for us. Really, that we don't know what we're dealing with, and also it doesn't give the police the powers or the emphasis to deal with it, because it's not seen as a problem, because it's actually pushed under the carpet and not dealt with. And then what that puts into place is farmers don't have the confidence to report, and then lack of reporting means that we don't get the true picture. So it's a vicious circle. So myself and Dave decided that this wasn't a North Wales problem. This was probably a problem throughout the UK, and we actually commissioned 4 other forces to try and assist us to produce a report to see if it was around the country. It took the other forces months and months and months to get to the bottom of the problem, but they came up with the same figures as us. And it was a huge figures, exactly to ourselves. I think we had Devon and Cornwall, Essex, North Yorkshire involved, and a couple of other forces. We all came up with the same statistics, that 120 attacks a year or so. We saw that most attacks were 70% in excess, where the actual owner wasn't present. So this was an interesting statistic, because historically we've always gone for user lead, user lead, user lead. But the statistics are telling us that actually it's when the owner isn't present. And what that's saying is that the dog's escaping, or the owner has let the dog go and it's ran off and not been recalled. So we looked at the problem, we looked at education, and the big thing with this is it doesn't work. Education simply has not worked. We've tried all sorts of education. We've done videos, we've done leaflets. You'll see campaigns such as this. I'm not belittling this. It's a great campaign to have, but people, irresponsible dog ownership, and this is what we're talking about. We're not talking about nasty dogs roaming our countryside. We're talking about irresponsible dog ownership. And it hasn't helped at all. So what we looked at is the law that we currently have, and Dave will go into a bit more detail with you with this, because he's the expert on the ground with it. But currently we have a 1953 Livestock Act. We also loan some bits and pieces from the 1871 Act, and we also loan pieces from a 1970 Act. So it's a right jumble of different bits and pieces. But the main act, the 1953 Act, in our opinion, is weak. It doesn't cover things like DNA obtaining, because DNA did exist then, but we didn't know about how to obtain it. So we have no power to obtain DNA. We don't have the power to ban somebody from owning dogs. So if a person's dog does go out and kills 30 sheep, and we eventually do get them to court, which would be lucky because evidence is difficult to come hold of because of the powers, they get a fine. The dog could be euthanized under the 1871 Act, but they can go out the next day and buy 30 dogs. There's no power to ban them at all. So it doesn't help with irresponsible dog ownership. So what's happened is, as in the UK, because of the success of the North Wales team, we have nearly 30 dedicated rural crime teams across the UK, which is fantastic, police teams. So what's happened is that public confidence has increased. Farmers now have good linkages because we attend farmers markets. We work on joint strategies together, and I think public confidence is, from the farming community, has gained, particularly in Wales. I can say that with some authority, that we're seeing now a true picture, and that's why I said earlier on that the increase we're seeing at 100% is not because suddenly there's a ravaging amount of dogs roaming our countryside. I just think we're now starting to get the true picture. So what it's saying is that this has always been a huge problem for us in the countryside. Yes, we do have slight issues with COVID and people buying more dogs, but that wouldn't give the stats that we're seeing now. We're seeing those stats because it's always been there. It's just that we're getting the true picture from it. So, like Phil said, we started a journey a few years ago to actually look at changing the law, which, for those of you, and me and Dave thought it may be quite simple to do. It's been 10 years of absolute hard work. We did get to a stage where myself and Dave, with others in DEFRA and RSP PCA, wrote an act that we thought was common sense. It included powers such as DNA, search warrants, the power for people to report. The attacks don't just have to happen on farming and arable land. They can happen in places that are common land as well, which is not covered by the Act. And also we included animals which are not included in the old Act. So alpacas and llamas, if a dog attacks those now, there is no offence. No offence whatsoever. And we're seeing an increasing amount of those being farmed and attacked as well. So we ended up with a law going through Parliament as part of the Kept Animals Bill. It was going through really well. We went to Parliament several times. I went before select committees. I think we got to about hurdle 4 in the House of Commons. I was extremely confident. We'd sort of started looking at possibly education and giving information out. And then last June, I think it was May, the government pulled the Kept Animals Bill without consultation. So I was basically sat in my garden. I remember the actual moment it happened, and somebody rang me and said, "Have you heard the Kept Animals Bill's been scrapped?" So it was scrapped. It was gone. We then made attempts to get it into the King's Speech on the 11th of November last year, which it wasn't. But then basically the government now have come forward and saying they're trying to get it through on a private member's bill. The feedback I'm having is that they're very optimistic about it, but I've been through these hurdles over these hurdles before, and I've been disappointed. So I can't say hand on heart whether it will succeed. It may run out of time. We may end up in another general election, as probably we will this year. So things may happen that will block us from continuing with it. But that's where we're at with it. The other things we have in the pipeline is that we have Operation Recall now, which is like a driver awareness scheme. When you're caught speeding, you get the chance to do a driver awareness scheme. So if people are irresponsible dog owners, we're looking at putting them on an education scheme. I'm looking at working with Blue Cross possibly in the future, where people will have to go on a half-day course. So that's something we want to look at. We feel in Wales, well, I certainly feel in Wales, that the dog chipping scheme has not worked at all because it's not enforced by anybody. So myself, something I'm looking at now, and Dave will be helping me with this, is regards to dog licensing, but an actual effective dog licensing system where it's paid for, similar to the one they have in parts of Canada, which is very successful, but it actually brings in responsible dog ownership, and that's the aim that I want to achieve. So Phil, that's sort of 10 minutes, I think, from myself. I'm more than happy to take questions the next couple of minutes if anybody wants to ask me a question, but I'm sure Dave can fill in the bits that I haven't covered. And also cover the practicalities, because Dave deals with these things on a daily basis on the front line.
Thanks, Rob. That's really excellent. And it's, yeah, I mean, it's quite sobering, some of the things you say, particularly around the fact that we've all been working on this for a long, long time now. And although we're not going to stop working on education and awareness, we have to keep working on that. You know, we've probably got to hold our hands up and say that the evidence suggests that it's not worked. You know, it's not led us to a place where the frequencies of these crimes or the severity of these crimes is getting any less. So I think you're absolutely right that focus on legal protection is essential. And again, it's quite sobering, your remarks about, you know, whether this latest private members bill is going to go through or not. Let's just hope it does, because it will never give us all we want, but it's certainly a major step forward in terms of
Yeah,
increasing police powers. There's
yeah,
absolutely no doubt about that. Also, very interested to hear about your comments about chipping in Wales not having worked, and it always seems to be a disconnect, doesn't there, in terms of chipping in any database to know where dogs are, who they belong to, or whatever. It's just not connected up. And a dog licensing system scheme is something that the NSA has talked about endlessly again for the last years on end, really. So yeah, it's we've still got a long way to go on this, but I'd like to thank you very much for the work that you've done. And there's one comment that's been put into the chat so far. I'm a provisional clinical animal behaviorist and a volunteer trainer, dog trainer, I assume. How is it that we can help? What can we do to help? That's the question, I think.
I think the big issue, and I say before, irresponsible dog ownership. So we as the police, we're not. Yes, myself and Dave, we've been to a couple of sad cases where a family dog has escaped by accident and gone out and done a kill. It was, there was irresponsible dog ownership was not a part of that. That was a pure accident. It was a real sad case because a kill was happened and the dog was euthanized, and it was really sad. But we're dealing with irresponsible dog ownership here. So the problem is with education and leaflets and pamphlets is these people are not listening. These are the ones that's not listening. This is the person who'll pull up into an area where the sheep, particularly Mulvanmai in North Wales, is a common one. They'll pull up, they'll open the boot of their car and let two staffies out the back to roam and run around. And next minute, as we've got video footage of, they're attacking and ripping sheep to pieces. And then they're still irresponsible that they don't actually put the dog back in the car and then report to the farmer. They'll just drive off and leave the sheep mauled to death. And this is what we're dealing with on a common basis, on a daily basis. It's that irresponsible dog ownership. And I think the one thing I can say, I will come back to answer the question very briefly. I've got another minute or so.
Yeah.
Is that I liken this to when the seatbelt law came in, the drink drive law came in, and also people driving on their mobile phones. Education didn't work, particularly if you think about recently the mobile phones. So people were driving their cars around on mobile phones, and you would probably see lots and lots and lots of people, particularly young people, driving on the mobile phones. And I was a traffic sergeant for a bit as well, so I was involved heavily with this, and we saw the consequences of it. And what happened is we'd put videos out, and people didn't listen. And then suddenly you say, right, 3 or 6 points on your license and a £200 fine, and suddenly people listen. And
Yeah.
also as well, an interesting part of that is change the ergonomics of cars. So cars now have Bluetooth in as standard. So you change the ergonomics, you change the situation. So with livestock attacks, you find pinch points and prominent points, and you actually put buckets with leads and collars in. So you look at ergonomics as well, and we're looking at that. But we also we don't want to be a toothless tiger. We need a law out there that actually gives us the power to investigate. We see people before the courts, and suddenly our irresponsible dog ownership thinks, hang on a minute, I'm not having my dog put down, fined £2,000, and actually getting banned and having my face in the paper. And suddenly attitudes will change. So that person asked, sorry, it's a long-winded answer. That person asked, what can we do they can do to help? I think in the meantime, you're probably not going to be able to get hold of the people who are responsible dog owners, but it's going to be an education process and possibly help with the scheme that we're looking to introduce, which actually puts people on awareness sessions afterwards and helps people promote responsible dog ownership. So that's the best answer I can give for you.
Yeah, excellent. All right, Rob. Look, I know you need to go, so I'd just like to again thank you for all the work you've done over the years, and hope that I'm sure you will continue, but look forward to continuing to work and with you on this. And thank you. And I hope
Pleasure. I'll leave you in the very capable hands of PC Allen, the font of
okay.
No
knowledge.
pressure there, Rob.
I'm not sure if I feel comfortable with that really, but
Thank you,
no,
everyone.
thank you, Rob.
Have a good
Thanks.
night. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, that was a great start actually, and we'll move on now to Dave Allen. Dave is from the North Wales Rural Crime Team. He's been a police officer with North Wales for over 23 years, and he's been with the bespoke full-time Rural Crime Team since its inception in 2013. During that time, he's investigated and worked in partnership with key agencies, problem solving many occurrences that have taken place in those areas in the rural communities. However, I know this from personal experience. Addressing livestock attacks on by dogs have been a passion for Dave since he first came onto the rural crime team. After seeing on a number of occasions the devastation that these attacks can have. Dave's the secretary of the National Police CC Crime Council.
National Police Chief Council. So it's all the Chief Constables of England and Wales.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you. The Livestock Worrying Group, he's secretary of the Livestock Worrying Group and has worked and evidenced over the last 8 years the need for a new Livestock Protection Act, which is what we've been talking about now, to replace the antiquated 1953 Act for England and Wales. And Rob has just given us a little bit of an update on where that is at the moment. As another note, it says that outside work, Dave is married with 2 daughters and a keen supporter of Wrexham AFC. And he can't put you in touch with Ryan Reynolds. Now, I hope that falls on ears better than my ears. I'm sure someone will get that. But Dave,
no, he's a famous movie actor. He sits about 6 rows from me, so that's about as close as I get to stardom there, Phil. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm going to try and share the screen. You have to bear with me. I don't normally use Zoom, so hopefully this will work. Let me have a look now. And you can tell me whether you can see that slide there. Can you see anything at all?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
No.
Right, okay. Oh, this could go very badly then. Okay. Let me come back onto Zoom.
Katie, can I just, as you're in the background, can I just ask that has Dave got the ability to share from his end? Have we got to give him a permission or anything?
Yeah, Dave, you should be able to. Is there? Oh, there you go. It looks like something's happening. You're away.
Thank you. That's it. That's perfect, Dave. Well done.
I think you're muted though, Dave, currently.
Right. Let's see how we get on with this now.
I think we might have lost your screen then, just again, Dave. Sorry.
It's okay. Can you see your screen now or anything?
No.
Oh. Let's try again. You should be able to see my screen now. You probably see Phil there.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's go on to my presentation.
That's good.
Right. Can you see that?
You're there. Well done. Well done.
Well, I'm not guaranteeing it's going to work, Phil, if we go through it. And I can't see my notes at all. So you have to bear with us as we go through this, really. But yeah, I'm going to carry on with the work that Rob's on. I'll touch on a few bits and bobs, but I'm mainly going to look at what happens at a livestock attack, really. As I mentioned, I'm Dave Allen. Been with North Wales Police for 23 years now. And since 2013, I've been with the Rural Crime Team. Presentation I'm going to show you does show some animals in distress, some pictures and videos and all, but that's the nature of what we're working with. Okay, as Rob's already touched on, worrying implies a slightly, the farmers turned up late with the feed and are slightly worried about it. It's a brutal attack. Yeah, it is what it is, and we need to show the realities of that, really. We've already discussed issues with the old Act. A couple of points I want to bring as well, which maybe Rob didn't touch upon, with the old 1953 Act. It was conceived just after the Second World War, when I think we had 148 police forces in the UK, something like that, the old borough and county police forces. So it was set for different times and all that. It doesn't really reflect what we need in modern farming practices. Limited animals are only covered by it. There's only 6 that are covered by it. So farming's moved on massively since then, So if you farm maybe deer, you may farm alpaca llama, they're not covered. Gamekeepers, when they're rearing pheasants in their pens, they're not covered under the Act or anything like that. It's only pigs, goats, poultry, horses, cattle and sheep that are covered under this Act and all that, really. It's not a Home Office requirement, so you could have some criminal damage on your farm or on your small holding. Somebody may smash a window, causing £10 worth of damage, something like that. That'll be recorded. That will go to Home Office. Home Office will compare forces against forces, and we've all got a standard way of recording as well to compare against each other's force. You could have an £11,000 breeding ram on your farm. A dog may come along and attack it and kill it. You've lost that bloodline, that stock. There's no requirement for the police to record that. So we can't compare across the forces or anything. Other issues with the Act as well, particularly for the police, is there's no warrant. I can't go to a court. Well, I could go to a court to get a warrant, but it's very limited. All I can do is bring the dog out, show it to a prospective witness and say, is this the dog that's attacked the livestock? Yes or no. That's it. I have to give it back. There's no power of seizure. So we've had cases in North Wales where dogs have returned and attacked. But because we know who the owner is, we have to give the dog back. So that'd be incredibly frustrating. Also, there's issues at court as well. You can't ban somebody from getting another dog. I think Rob already mentioned that. They can just leave court and go buy another dog, despite us evidencing that they're completely unsuitable to have that dog. And also, there's no powers written into the Act from 1953 for the court to refer to. And that initially, when we started this journey, that caused immense confusion in courts. They were convicting people. And I remember going to court myself, and they didn't know what powers they had available to them, so they've had to adjourn to go find it. Any new Act will hopefully build that in as well, really. So, moving on. Okay, let's have a look at the scale. Now, I can't give you national figures because the Home Office don't record it. So I can only give you North Wales, and we voluntarily record them. So what we got there, 152 calls from the 1st of May to the end of April 2023, and that's the latest I've got at the moment. 152 calls. I strongly suspect there's probably a lot more and goes on out there that just don't get recorded or told to us. Working around the rural community, I know there's quite a lot of self-sufficient people, and I may suspect, what can the police do if we don't know the dog is, and they may not report it. My advice is, if you don't report it to the police, well, officially it's never happened. Because if the government comes to me, whether it's UK or Welsh government, and go, Dave, what's the situation in Wales? Have we got an issue with livestock attacks? I can only go on figures reported to me. So even though if you don't think there's anything the police can do, if you report it, at least it's happened and all that, and we can refer it, because it's one piece of jigsaw that forms part of a bigger jigsaw and all that. As you can see, we've got a heat map there on my left. Okay, where we can see the Wrexham area and the Flintshire area, the border of England, where we have the majority of our livestock attacks. Okay, these are sheep, predominantly 89%. You can see there in the figures. And they are predominantly near the population centres of North Wales. And also a hotspot time, and it's not rocket science, is probably when lambing time. So we got all our farmers from the mountainous areas of Wales bringing all their stock over to northeast Wales, to the lowland areas, and into Cheshire as well. They overwinter time to graze over winter and for get ready for lambing and all that. And they're exposed to more population centres there as well. What we can see from that one, I think it's quite interesting to point out as well, is you've got a big blob of green there in the middle, and that's Snowdonia National Park. You can see how little livestock attacks we have there. Yet that is the area where a lot of our tourism comes in. People travel from all over the world to see. But what this map is showing, based on the figures we have, is that livestock attacks are near the population centres of towns, that sort of thing now. Okay, the next slide is a little bit gruesome, but I can only just show you what I can on it. Yeah, and I found my notes. Right. Okay. Livestock attacks, worrying. They are brutal. There's no getting away from it. Dogs will rip, shred, and this is what you will see when you encounter a livestock attack. Okay. This is what you will see, your farmhands, you see, your family may see, passing publicly reported to you may see. That's what I will see as well. Okay. What I will say following a livestock attack, okay, we're going to talk about evidence and what the police did at a livestock attack. But my number one priority for the livestock keeper, and what I want you to do as well, is look after the welfare of your animals. Okay, get the vet out. Call Emily if you're down in that area as well. Get them out, because those animals need treating. I will always gather the evidence later on and all that. That is your first priority, and that's number one priority what you need to think of. If you call the police and you're in the field, okay, Dave's top tip, particularly if you live in a border area, because we border Dyfed-Powys, we also border Cheshire, and in certain areas, mobile phone signals will bounce to the nearest transmitter. So you may call from North East Wales, but you may go over to Merseyside. So if you call in the police, always ask the operator for North Wales Police if you know the area you're in and all that, okay? Also, what 3 words is your friend? Now, I appreciate not everywhere can get a mobile phone signal, but if you're in the middle of an isolated rural location, I expect these sheep to be and all that. If you can give a what 3 words location, that's great. It means we can come to you. If you can't, if you can see a house name or anything like that, that's good as well, really. Okay, you've had a livestock attack. You're checking on your animal welfare. What other bits and bobs can you be doing while you're waiting for the police to arrive? Okay, check your boundaries. And I'll check undergrowth, check any water courses. What I've seen previously from livestock attacks and all that is that sheep will naturally go after they've been run, will naturally go to these areas to have a check. If you can, count your stock. If you can, even it's just a quick count. I'm not asking for the full count, just a quick count, trying to account for what you're looking for and what you're missing, potentially what you're missing as well. Okay. Now, as a police officer, during a conversation, when we eventually turn up, at some point in that conversation, I would probably ask you for your tag numbers. I'll probably ask you for whether they're in lamb, the breed of them, and the value of them as well. Okay, as well, and how far in lamb they may be. Because I appreciate that livestock, you could be having a double whammy here after a livestock attack, particularly if they're in lamb, you could lose next year's stock as well. So I'm trying to build all that into the crime reports and all that in case we go to court. Okay, well, I will say there are 30-odd rural crime teams in the 43 police forces, I think, in England and Wales, but there are a lot of forces that still don't have them as well. Be patient with a police officer who may turn up to your job in a force area that does not have a rural crime team. Okay, there's no national training program for a police officer to deal with livestock attacks. Okay, and the officer may not have a clue or any farming background or anything like that. So be patient. I appreciate you're going to be up here somewhere with what's going on, but the officer is probably relying on you to guide them a little bit as well, okay, to what's going on, what you need to do. Okay, some of you may have seen this before. It is rare to get a livestock attack on video. It's so rare, I've been using this video for probably about 8 years or something like that. There are 2 types of livestock we're going to look into, okay, livestock attacks. This is what I would call an active ongoing attack. So it's happening. It's there. You're witnessing it, okay. In this case, dial 999, okay, that would be my advice to you. It's a crime in progress, okay. As I already mentioned, ask for your force by that 999 operator because they could be bounced anywhere around the country that I'll call. Ask for North Wales Police, ask for Dyfed-Powys Police, West Mercia, wherever you are, okay? And if you can, give a what 3 words location as well. That's what the operator's looking from and all that, okay? Right, so what you're seeing here is an active attack. It's ongoing. And
Dave,
normally, yeah.
Dave, we've got the slide, the slide.
I haven't played it yet, Phil.
Okay.
I'm going to play it now.
Okay, that's fine.
This is mold.
That's great.
Oh, I make noise. This is mold on a Sunday morning, and these dogs have already escaped 2 or 3 times. So you're going to see by the tree here, roughly where that the pointer is there, 3 boxes. They've escaped. They chased this pregnant ewe up against the fence, and she's heavy in lamb, fleece, sodden, so she can't escape, and she's just given up and all that, really. But you can listen to how quiet it is. They literally just turn the fleece. Well, he got the gun, and 2 of those dogs were shot, which I'll come on to later on. Okay. Now, normally, I after an active ongoing attack, 4 things have happened. You've either caught the dog is back with its owner, the dog has run away, or like in this case, the dog has been shot. Okay. If the dog has been caught, in my experience, I'm not going to predict the future, but in my experience, the dog has no interest in you. So if you got the dog there, it's often tired and will show you no aggression. It tends to be, it thinks it's done a good job and all that, and it's often knackered by the time it's there. I've been to the first slide you saw at the very beginning, my introduction slide. I picked up a staffy from there as well. No aggression. I just picked it up and put it back in the police car. And that's often what I come across. Okay. If the dog has been shot, I will normally check it for an microchip. Okay. I know the owner will be looking for it somewhere because often experience and stats will back me up is the dog's escaped from home and all that. Okay. So that dog owner is generally put a Facebook appeal out and they're generally looking for that dog and all that. I also tend to contact the local authority dog warden as well. This has been reported to them. No matter what, in this scenario, we've had an attack, we've got the dog, we know who the dog is. I will be photographing all that scene, including the dog if it's there, and any injuries to the livestock. Okay. If we trace the owner, they're often visibly upset. Often the first they're aware of it is when I turn up on the door, knock on the door, they think, oh, have you found my dog? Have you found my dog? Yes, I have. But it's attacked and killed livestock. Oh, and you can see the world collapsing then. Most of the people we deal with livestock attacks are good people. They haven't been in trouble with the police before or stuff like that. We've had no contact with the police. And generally they'll want to make amends and they want to do what's right, okay? Because they want to put you right as a livestock keeper. And they want to keep their dog, which is a valued member of the family as well. So we can work a little bit with them around there. Emotions are generally running pretty high though, after a livestock attack as well. So over the next few days, as we go through it, collecting the evidence, dealing with all the parties, we'll generally reach some sort of agreement over the next few days and all that. Okay. So that's an active livestock attack. I can go show the next one. Now we're going to look at a historic attack. Okay. This is a type of attack which is historical. You've turned up on your land and you've seen the attack, which is what you see there. That's Holywell area in Flintshire, the job I went to on that picture there. And the dog's gone. You don't know where the dog is or anything like that. So we've got a different type of scenario where the police are dealing with here. Okay. You will see animals mutilated and it will come as a complete shock to you. The first thing you may see is this, exactly this sort of picture here. Okay. Well, I tend to see you will be upset, your emotions will be up here, and your world may be turned upside down as well. At this stage, as we're going round, I'll be doing the evidence gathering. I will be taking CCTV of the animals on my body-worn video. There's generally limited CCTV coverage because we're in a rural area. There's generally no forensics because of the weather and those sort of conditions there as well. That they can play a part in time. When did you last check them? That can also have an impact. I can generally not do house to house or farm to farm. Your next farm may be half a mile or so away. And I say there's very limited CSI opportunities, but we do gather evidence because, as you probably heard the saying, once dogs have a taste, they'll be back. So I couldn't bring you up a graph or anything like that, but my experience is once a farmer's had an attack, they generally become a repeat victim over the next few months. So we're gathering the evidence now, ready for any future court cases. And typically, if I can go back, if this will work. No. I was able to show the type of footage I could do there, but it won't. No. Okay. So we're collecting the evidence now, because if you're a repeat victim, we've got that to put to any dog owner at a later date. Okay, we haven't traced the dog. You are going to be worried as well because that dog's coming back. Your stock may be many miles away from your farm as well, particularly if you're wintering that stock as well. So what can we do? Well, As a police, we'll try and reassure you. We'll check the boundaries with you. Okay, we'll give you signs to put up as well about dog worrying. We'll give you information about when you can shoot a dog as well and what the scenario is as well. We'll give you advice on that as well. And in cases like this, we generally found successful is social media is your friend. Okay, now don't go on a rant about it, but we would generally ask for your permission to put a press release out there to know we've had this livestock attack here. The farm's lost this or injured this, these many. Can all dog owners in this area please check their boundaries? Please do this. Or if you've got any information, contact the police or Crime Stoppers, quoting this reference number there. And that can generally work as well because news spreads around that local community and everybody's aware of it as well. So that can be quite an effective tactic. So we've had the historical attack, we've had the active attack. Now, over the next few days, weeks, you're the victim and you're going to be thinking about this. So this is where we all have a part to play in the rural community as well. Okay, victim support is crucial. You don't realize you're doing it or anything like that. But if you have a colleague or anybody like that who has a livestock attack and they live in an isolated location and they're up working here, there and everywhere, it's going to be on their mind all the while. Check on them, have a cup of tea, let them get off their chest. A big part of my job is I may go to a livestock attack, but it's having a cup of tea, chatting it through, getting it off the chest, reassuring. But I can't be there every day. But friends, family, colleagues can, and all that. So we've all got a part to play. Just go in there and checking to make sure you're okay and all that. Honestly, I can't stress that enough, really, particularly if the livestock is many miles away, because you can't just go out and check on it as well. Okay. I've included this because I get asked this a lot. Can a dog be shot? Yeah, a dog can be shot. Okay, it's under the Animal Act 1971, Section 9, and it's a civil act. It's a different act compared to the Dogs Protection of Livestock 1953. Okay, under that act, under Section 9, a farmer can shoot a dog and is unlikely to face prosecution, both criminal and civil damages. Okay. That dog there is somebody's property. Okay, so there's prescribed scenarios in the law there when you can shoot that, protect your property and all that. Okay, generally the attack has to be ongoing in the field in question, and generally you need to have done something first of all beforehand before you move to that shooting the dog. You may try shout and holler to distract the dog. You may be in your vehicle around the field, something like that as well. Just something to show before you move to that final stage there. Okay. If the dog leaves the field and goes into the next field and has a lie down, the attack's over. You can't shoot it. Okay, it's somebody's property. It could be criminal damage. This act here just gives you a little bit of a defense on the criminal and civil proceedings, okay, when the attack is ongoing. Okay. Even though it's not written in law, if the dog owner's with that dog, think very, very carefully about shooting that dog and the images of firearms out there in the countryside and all that as well. Just be mindful of that. Okay. I can't give you a booklet to say do this, do this, do this in the scenario. No two scenarios are the same. Now, the law requires you to report it after you shot a dog within 48 hours to the police. But in this day and age, you need to be doing it straight away. Dogs are microchipped. The owner will be looking for it as well. Okay. And you need to let us know so we can get up there and try and do inquiries to trace that dog owner. Really. Okay. What you can't do as well is take the dog away and kill it. Okay. That is a criminal damage, and you will face the consequences of that. Only in that field at that time, and the attack is ongoing. Okay, what to expect following a livestock attack in North Wales? As I already alluded to, most people, dog owners, want to work with us. Okay, we will deal with a vast majority of livestock attacks through what's known as community resolution. You may know it as restorative justice. Okay, generally, the people who own the dog admit it's their dog that's attacked that livestock. Okay, they will make compensation. And typically they will pay you for that loss of livestock. And they'll probably do an undertaking to get the garden fence done and not to walk or be in that area again where you keep your livestock or stuff like that. vast majority of our community resolutions, our livestock attacks are dealt with by that. Advantages for you is you have your money quickly. Okay, the dog owner obviously can manage their pet and all that sort of stuff there. You've got safeguards in place, excuse me, as well to prevent those attacks. And the livestock and the dog owner can only ever be given one of these. Okay, and if they fail to comply, we can then use it in any future court cases involving the same dog and the person there. So we've got community resolutions. Sometimes people just want advice and warning given. We'll do that as well. But we will go to court if you as a dog owner fail to address your ways and you are allowing your dogs to repeatedly escape, to repeatedly attack, and you do not engage with us and the victim. So we will take you to court and all that. That will involve you as the dog owner coming to a police station for an interview, and it'll be exactly like you see in the telly. It'll be taped, and you will generally have a solicitor with you, and we'll go through it. At the beginning of the interview, I will brief the solicitor to say, well, this is what the Crown's got, this is what the Crown will allege, that's my evidence and disclosure. You would then go into, if you're a dog owner, you would then go into consultation with a solicitor, okay, and they will advise you one way or the other. And generally at that point, then the seriousness of going to court will hit you and all that, okay. The fact is that you will be fined and your dog will either have a dog control order if found guilty of court, or a dog destruction order where the dog is destroyed. Only a court can issue a dog destruction order, okay. It's not something I can do or anything like that. Only a court can do that. If we don't know who the dog is, as I already mentioned, we will give you advice such as warning signs like you see in the bottom corner there, and advice about firearms and use around those as well. So that's generally what you could expect in North Wales. Other forces may have different ways, but obviously I can't comment on that with regards to that. Now, the future we've already touched upon. We've already known about the issues regards the 1953 Act. Well, there's currently a new Dog Protection Livestock Amendment Act going to Westminster. It's not a devolved power, so it will apply to England and Wales. Okay, what's going through? And that will have on it some better powers. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that now. So for the first time ever, the police will have the power to go get a warrant to collect evidence against that dog, whether it's muddy towels, any evidence of fleece at the scene or anything like that. I'll be able to go to a court and ask that judge or that magistrate for the power to do that. I'll also have the power to seize a dog, which would be the first as well, even if I know who the dog owner is, to stop the repeat attacks happening. And if that person gets convicted of court, they will pay for the upkeep of that dog in care and all that. Okay. We're also open for dog owners, if convicted, will be banned from having any future dogs if they've got a particularly poor record of owning a dog. What I'm going to look at here and talk about as well, just the last two slides of my presentation, is for the first time ever, police officers will have the power to request and to get DNA from an attacked livestock and from a suspect dog. Now, in this scenario, because we don't have a national dog DNA database in the UK, is if we got a suspect dog, there might be paw prints in the snow, in the mud, there might be witness evidence to say that that dog's gone in that house over there. If we knock on and the dog owner doesn't play ball with us, we will then have the power to seize that dog and to get DNA to compare to any DNA left at the livestock attack scene. Remember, dogs are not forensically aware. Their saliva and all that will be over it. So if we can recover and match the two, it'll either prove or disprove that dog's guilt there. Now, when I asked for this to go into this new act going to Parliament, I thought it'd simply just be a case of using existing human DNA kits, the swab in the cheek. No, it's a new science. I didn't realize that the human DNA kits that we use pick up on a particular human trait, which obviously dogs don't have. So working along with my colleagues, Dr. Nick Dorney, and you see him there, that's him at a livestock attack scene there in the Wrexham area. From Liverpool John Moores University, there's exciting new science coming out now to assist in this new act, where there's bespoke DNA test kits that are being designed and being rolled out, and we should start seeing them in the summer. It's a new science. This will prove or disprove the science, but the signs are pretty good at the moment. These kits will have tapes, like just a piece like sellotape almost, swab, what you traditionally think of in DNA kits, and scissors for wool cutting. And the idea is, if police, some vets, and certain repeat victims of livestock attack farmers will have these kits. And as soon as they become aware, we'll take these kits out and we will collect off the livestock, either tape, we'll tape around the wound, collecting DNA, swab, where we'll take a controlled swab from the mouths of the attacked animal, and if hopefully with the dog owner's permission, from the dog owner as well, we'll swab. And wool cutting, we'll cut various bits around the wound and other parts of the fleece as well, and we'll send those off. And we'll send those off to Nick in Liverpool. And he will look at the best way that we can extract that DNA, because we've got time and weather against us. Okay. Best way for us to get that DNA back so we can identify that dog off the scene. So those are the kits that are coming up. Now, it's not something that can be used in the criminal justice system yet. It is cutting edge science and all that, which in theory works, but we're just doing the practicalities of it now. So part of this program here, we've got 9 police forces being trained. There's obviously us, and there I am in my Blue Peter moment up the top there. I think there's North Yorkshire, Devon, and Cornwall as well. They've been used, and Kent is another one off the top of my head. So they've been trained, and they'll be doing this. The kits will start rolling out in the summer. Funding's coming from DEFRA, because remember, it's an England and Wales law, so they've got an interest in funding it. And just you won't be able to ring up and ask for these kits. We will be giving them out to repeat victims, because we've only got a limited number to go from there. We hopefully, once this science is all proved, you will start seeing these kits being given out by the National Super Association, stuff like that as well. So you've got them in the Land Rover, ready to go, in case you become one of those victims and all that there. These kits are cheap to produce. We're just doing the theory and putting out to practice so it can stand the scrutiny of a court case and all that. Okay. What we're hoping for as well with these kits is, once it's all proved and we dealt with the livestock attack, we'll be able to move it on to other legislation, such as badger baiting, where dogs are used to fight badgers. Organised dog fighting, we'll be able to do that there, and dog bites on humans as well. So we're looking for that. And finally, my last screen is, all I say is, remember, it's just not sheep that can be devastated by these attacks. There's all sorts of other livestock out there, 6 at the moment. So we've got pictures there of poultry that are being attacked in the Wrexham area. The spring had gone out and killed them. And also there we've got a cattle farmer from northwest Wales whose livestock was attacked, and we never did trace that dog, causing over £11,000 worth of damage. Have we got any questions?
There's no questions that have come in. Again, to the audience out there, do post questions if you've got them, ideally in Q&A, but chat, but nothing's come through. But again, that was a great presentation, Dave. Thanks very much for that. And
no problem.
You've given us a good insight into some of the challenges that people face, and also, how you as a force go about dealing with it as well, and then an insight into some of the new technologies coming through as well, which should help in the future. And that, where you started, that it's got to be one of the messages that we keep getting out there, and to report is absolutely essential, because if we don't, then it's really difficult to get extra resources and investment into trying to come up with solutions. So that was fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. And we may, there may be questions come up, after Emily's finished as well. But I'd like to thank you very much indeed. And I'd now like to introduce Emily Gascoigne. Some of you on the call will know Emily. She's a well-known sheep vet. She's based down in Dorset and works for Synergy Farm Health. She's a specialist in the area of sheep, though I'm sure she deals with lots of other minor farm animals as well, you might say.
Try not to, actually. Mostly sheep now.
But Emily, you work with flocks of all different sizes and scales, and got aspects of interest in all aspects of flock production. You farm at home as well as being a vet with your family with 550 ewes, including Romneys and autumn lamb and Poll Dorsets. And you've also got personal experience of a severe dog attack on your own flock at home on Coronation Day last year. And I know you're going to come at this very much from a health and welfare aspect in terms of what we can do with sheep, but also, from that practical experience of having suffered an attack fairly recently. So, Emily, over to you.
Right, let me see if my right. Can you, Phil? Can you see my my slides, not my notes? Is that what you can see? Look, lovely. First, I should just say that the talks from both Rob and Dave this evening. I'm going to be honest. Before the dog attack we had at home, I must, in the grand scheme of things, I think I was hugely ignorant to the vast amount of work that's happening in the background, and what a difference those changes to the law would make in so many of these cases. And I totally endorse the belief that the only way to really have traction on this is to change the consequence and prosecution, or the threat, the potential that your dog owning relationship might change. I think that's the only way to really affect some of these offenders. So, but I very much wanted to approach this evening to tell you a little bit about the case that we had at home. And actually, although I think my pictures are graphic enough, they will pale into insignificance from some of the bits you've just seen from Dave. And my social media recently has been filled with hideous cases. One particularly recently in Tavistock, huge amount of empathy for those. So actually, you might look at my pictures and think she got away quite lightly there, but it would certainly, we can look at some of my thought processes. A bit of disclosure. So I'm a sheep vet, as Phil said, and not only have I had this case that happened at home, but in a professional capacity, my practice is regularly dealing with the consequences of dog attacks. Not always when the culprit has been identified, but they can be varying from no contact to really quite severe. So I see this from both angles. And yeah, this evening's very much inspired by the case we had last year. So as already said, so I sheep by day and sheep by night as well. So we've got 3 flocks spread over multiple locations. We've got an autumn lambing pedigree Poll Dorset flock, commercial flock of Romney Highlanders, which are lambing at the moment, and you're getting me out of night lambing. And I've got some Hebrideans, so variation in breeds. But the case that happened in particular was on Coronation Day. I had a lovely day planned, and first thing in the morning got a phone call because some of my Poll Dorsets, which had the tupping with them, had been an observed dog attack by 2 large dogs. The witness had managed to get in touch with me. The animals and their owner had now left, but there were clearly animals in distress and severely injured. I was at home with a brand new baby, all very stressful, but I made 2 phone calls as soon as I got off the phone to the witness. The first phone call was to my vet, and the second phone call was to the police. And I wanted to explore that, maybe the order of the phone call, but also why, even as a sheep vet, albeit with limited resources because I was on maternity leave, why, even in that situation, I wanted another vet present on farm. My other half, who I think is watching this from the lambing shed, was asked to I said, get your phone out, take pictures of everything, and that'll perhaps, anticipating maybe doing a talk for the National Sheep Association in the future. So, as I said, it was a group of tupping Poll Dorsets. Here they are, Adam getting them in from the field. I think one of the first things to notice is that you can see there's somebody near the front that's fairly injured, but actually until you get, and these are recently shorn, until you actually get them in, obviously the graphic stuff's fairly obvious, but you don't really have any idea of how many animals are affected until you get them all in and have a really good look at them. And that's that's obviously the first thing that you need to do, and you really need to understand the number of animals that are implicated. In this case, it was quite easy for me because I knew how many ewes had gone in with the rather nice ram that was in this group, so I had an idea of numbers from the off, but that's something that you might want to know from the beginning. So this ewe will feature had obviously faced the brunt of the attack, and this is the first thing my other half was presented with. And it became fairly obvious that there were individuals that had really taken the brunt of it. Now, just in case you're not all totally familiar with the Pole Dorset, these have gone into the tup. They were in pretty good condition, and just to give, these ewes will have been packing 80 kilos every day of the week. So there's been some fair power applied to these animals in this case, and you'll all have seen images on social media of far more severe injuries than this. From here, you can see we've got muscle, soft tissue, possibly even a bit of bone exposure. And to be really frank, that needs operating on if it's salvageable. I know as a vet that in order to maximise positive outcomes in this case, that it's going to require prompt surgical intervention. A dog's mouth is full of bacteria, and then by the time you combine that with trauma and bruising, if these aren't dealt with properly and quickly, the secondary consequences, infection, you might get loss of function. So I knew that if we had any hope of saving these girls in, the long-term benefit, that it needed to be dealt with properly and quickly. And also, one of the reasons, I haven't seen this animal before. I've got my vet on the road, and actually some of these animals might need euthanizing, and it may be that you don't have the provision to do that on farm, and actually having somebody else support you in making that decision, especially if it might go to a prosecution. I just really felt it was important to have somebody else that wasn't me, that wasn't quite as emotionally involved in this, but that would also have the tools to help with pain relief and euthanasia. Hence why I'd got my vet on farm. You'll have tools on farm, I'm sure, with regards to pain relief, in accordance with your vet and your health plan. But actually, from a surgical perspective, you need a vet. So my immediate priority, as Dave said earlier, priority number 1 is animal welfare, managing pain, and making prompt euthanasia decisions. But actually, these are just some of the images that you can see a little bit more detail. So my first priority has been animal health and welfare, but actually fairly quickly you calm down a little bit and realise, well, there's a second priority now. I've got my vets present, and I've got a plan for these animals. We've made a strategy, and actually, in my case, it wasn't an active. By the time I got there, and my vet got there, it wasn't an active attack. So my brain's gone a little bit now to, well, I need to support the police and just make sure I've got as much information as possible. Hence the iPhone's clicking, hence not a veterinary tape measure has started to appear. And we're starting to gather information which may be useful in the future to support our rural crime team when they do arrive. As I said earlier, I think prosecution or getting something documented on somebody's record is the only way we'll really make change to this. And I must confess that I think one of the things that really motivated me in this case when it had happened, and has really motivated the endless phone conversations that I seem to have about this now, and all the teams that I've interacted with, is actually, how do I prevent this happening to my stock in the future? Actually, we're a farming community. This is not my problem. This is my neighbour's problem over the hill, unless it's a tourist, which could be quite feasible in the area that we farm. But actually, I felt a real drive to really do and do everything right in this case to protect them in the future as much as my own stock. So it was one of my colleagues that had come out. They'd examined the animals initially to make the, can I do something with everybody, or do I need to make those euthanasia decisions? And in our case, nobody was euthanized. And if they are, obviously you need to the vet would do that immediately, but they still have huge value from a forensic perspective, not only for collecting samples we've heard, but even it could be submitted for forensic post-mortem if necessary. My husband and my colleague went through the animals, identified those that needed very superficial treatment, and then obviously did surgery on the animals that needed more in-depth treatment, photographing all the way. And crucially, fortuitously, not long before this attack, I'd been at the Sheep Veterinary Society's conference, and there was a presentation by another vet, and I think it was Cheshire Constabulary, talking about DNA collection. So we just got a bit of something, and actually it turned out that we perhaps could have approached it now a bit differently to collect those samples, and it's clear that that knowledge is coming through now, but that nonetheless samples were taken, and they were taken away from the visit to be stored by my vet in evidence sample bags, so that should they be needed in the future, they were available, and an appropriate chain of care of those samples had happened. But top tips that I think I learned from this case, and if this happened to us again, I think we would be military in collecting them. So vet, your initial, as I've said, initial prognostic decision, can you manage the pain and welfare of that animal? And if not, that's a euthanasia decision. But if you can, get pain relief in there as soon as possible. But before you start collecting, doing surgery and splashing Hibby scrub everywhere, quickly collect your samples. Not that it's going to interfere with animal welfare, but remembering it will have merit for prevention of animal welfare issues in the future, hopefully. So quickly collect those, and then crack on with whatever else you need to do. But top tips as a farmer: photograph as much as you can. You can be supporting the police and both your vet in writing that report. Secondly, really want, Dave's already said, one of the first questions he's going to ask you is how many animals in the group, how many were affected, do you have the ear tag number of any individual that's, you know, this is you 157, I can tell you that now. But record any animal that was in that group. That's useful information. Any animal that's had topical blue spray, any level of contact with those dogs, write it down. It's really difficult to get that retrospectively if you're asked for it. You can be doing that while your vet's beavering away, attending to those animals. So that's really important. And so I'm sure you can imagine what it's like when a sheep get attacked. So these happen to be signet recorded single sire mating animals, and I have an awful lot of information about them. Now you might not have that level, so I knew how it happened that the ram was in. I knew what those ewes had scanned the year before. I knew how many ewes had lambed in the first period of that ram's mating period the year before. Now, anyone that's got a lot of recording will have all that information. Drag it out. That may be useful if you end up having severe reproductive consequences and need that evidence. But to everybody else who might not quite have that level of information, I bet you've got more than you think. So have a discussion with your vet in that case. But farmer and vet working together can really support the investigation when the police arrive and get involved. So I just wanted to throw out there in my second to last slide some top tips for us all. So we've heard crimes in progress, the phone calls you need to ring. I would also just like to add, so I had another sheepdog attack that was far less severe the year before. Somebody on a footpath, they'd got caught out, they'd not seen my sheep, but nonetheless I still wanted it documented somewhere should it happen again, and I actually reported it online. Dorset Rural Crime Team have that facility, so even if it's not quite the scale some of the images we've seen today, you must report it, because police have no hope of understanding where hotspots are or that your farming neighbourhood's getting hammered by this. It's really important you report everything. But I'd like to challenge you as farmers watching this. Have you ever met a member of your local rural crime team? Would you know how to get in touch with them? They often appear at county shows, local agricultural events. They'll know your NFU office or other organisations. Have you met them in a situation, and been and said hello and where you're farming? Have you met them in a situation where you don't need to meet them? And I'd really encourage that. The second challenge is really to organisations like the NSA and the secretaries in the different regions. So do you know who the rural crime teams are in the counties that you are looking at? And do you have a direct contact? And that's dead easy to set up, and means that organisations like the NSA, who often get contacted, I certainly made Ian in the Southwest aware of our case, and our local NFU. There's a lot of easy communication to help people get to the rural crime team. And thirdly, for vets, there was an awful lot of phone calling that happened on my part. And don't be afraid to reach out to the Sheep Veterinary Society, who will put you in touch with somebody like me, or other enthusiasts for the subject. But also, do you have a bit of a practice protocol in these cases? So now, if I got called out to a sheep worrying case, a sheepdog attack, I would be routinely collecting that level of information now, and perhaps asking or collecting the type of samples that would be needed in that kit to take away, to go in an evidence bag, to go in my practice freezer. So should the client want that information in the future, I've got it, and it's stored and it's safe. Because you never know when clusters start happening in a region. If you haven't got that evidence, then you can't get it retrospectively. So I just challenge everybody. We can probably all talk to each other more and forge those relationships, which will help in the future. But I thought I should probably end on a nice note. So this is U157. And just to show you the amazing power of sheep, she got in lamb. She stood, all those wounds were over her rump, and she must have stood for the tups 10 days later. And she got in lamb and had 2 lovely live lambs. So sheep are amazingly resilient. But merit of getting your vet involved. They can assist with surgical cases and provide advanced pain relief. Which you probably won't have access to on farm. They can provide independent advice and assessment about prognosis and document it, especially with regards to euthanasia decisions, which might help if the case escalates from a financial perspective or for insurance, etc. And we can help you with evidence collection, whether that's photos, taking samples away and storing them independently. And certainly, you'll get a huge amount of empathy from your vet, because we're at the coalface of these attacks as well. So that's everything from me. But
excellent.
Yeah, keep talking.
That's really excellent, Emily. And again, you see some of those pictures and they're sobering. As you say, there's plenty more pictures out there that are far, far more graphic than that. But even
and I should say, just because I appreciate this, the only reason that I think that our case was not more severe or harrowing was because of the witness. And I really, and I think that's really important, that we communicate our gratitude when people stand up for our farming businesses. So they were really important in intervening. And like I think Dave said earlier, you don't check your sheep every hour. These animals could feasibly have gone quite a long window, but until they were next checked, whether later on that day. And I'm pretty sure that you would have been in a right old mess if that had been the case. So the witness was really important in alleviating animal welfare.
There were a couple of points that I made a note of while you went through your presentation, Emily. One was, interestingly, I mean, the point you made about making contact with local police forces and rural crime teams. Interestingly, in the survey that we did just recently, that we launched this week, it certainly came up that more police forces are doing more. Just to create rural crime teams, but to be out there, out and about, to be at agricultural shows, to be at livestock markets, to bank holidays, maybe to be at tourist hotspots and just talk to people. There's a lot of outreach work that's going on, and I think it's a two-way process, as you say, because if they take the trouble to attend those things, we should take the trouble to go out and speak to them and give them the contact details and just make that contact.
They've also, a lot of them have got Facebook pages, which are brilliant. And if that's the only thing you do from my talk this evening is go and follow them on your local Facebook page, then actually that's a job well done from me. So yeah, get in touch.
Dave, would you can validate that, I guess, Dave, as well, because I'm sure you and your forces spend time out on, and I know the heat map that you showed didn't suggested that maybe the worst of these cases don't happen in the middle of Snowdonia, but again, there's masses of people there and dogs, and I would imagine you spend time there.
Oh yeah, we're out and about. In fact, we have a bespoke engagement van in North Wales, which we'll take to the marts, so the livestock keepers can come have a chat and a cup of tea with us. In fact, I'm out tomorrow in Mulvamai, which with the van, 300,000 visitors a year, 75% of those have dogs. Just educating the dog owners and all that, just making them aware, as well as your leisure environment, it's a working environment as well. So, yeah, we do, and social media is a great tool, for getting the message out there.
Yeah, and as we've said a couple of times this evening already, you might be negative about this and say that education hasn't worked, but it doesn't for a moment mean that we've got to stop trying to educate and increase awareness. We have to keep doing that.
I would say, Phil, once the law gets changed, which I'm confident it will, whether it's this side of a general election is another thing, education is the next tool, because that's what we got. We have to educate people that it's your dog and your responsibility. And then I have to educate police officers, because part of my role after this will be getting some training in as well around that, and advising DEFRA on what we should be telling the enforcers out there, what we need to do as well. So that's it. That's as far I can take it as a police officer, really.
Excellent.
And I would add to that, I think from a veterinary perspective, I can see Judith Charnley's on the call. In the midst of our dog attack, I made a lot of phone calls very quickly to try and find out how to take the right samples, etc. There's a real training piece there for vets as well, and I include myself very much in that, although I'm sort of the other side of it now, about how we can support our farmers and the police in evidence collection to help as well, especially if there's a lag of those samples need to be collected quickly. So
I would also say as well, Emily and fellow vets have a huge part in the prosecution cases as well. When we go to court as a police officer, I can only give expert opinion to that court, the magistrate or the judge, on intoxication. So I can tell you you're drunk, and the court will have that. But I cannot tell you whether that dog's been attacked, whether that lamb has been attacked by a dog or anything like that, or what injuries it suffered. Only Emily and fellow vets can do that. So when we're going to court, particularly not guilty cases, we rely heavily on vets and their medical professional opinions as well. Okay. So if we're going to court, I will want to know who your vet is and to release their medical notes from there. And I'll probably get a statement from them as well to say, yes, in my opinion, this is a livestock attack.
Yeah, indeed. The other thing I was going to just bring up, well, Emily, but to you as well, Dave. I mean, you've both, talked about some fairly nasty physical attacks, and we're talking more about dog attacks on sheep, aren't we? But more, I suppose you might call it lighter scale sheep worrying is still a problem and still needs to be reported. And even if there's no physical damage to those sheep, that again, the risk of abortion, the stress, disruption to tupping, all those things. It's still a crime, and it still should be reported. And again, gathering that evidence, it may take longer. It may take several weeks in the case of sheep aborting due to an attack, I guess. To gather that evidence over a period of time is still important.
Yeah. It is. Even the law makes no distinguishing. Unlike the Dangerous Dogs Act, you can be scared of a dog biting you. But if the dog bites you as a human, it's aggravated and it's a more severe offence. You don't have that with a dog's protection livestock attack. Whether your dog's loose amongst a field full of sheep or whether it's attacking them and killing them, the law's the same. It's not aggravated, so it's still that same crime and all that. And again, as well as I do, Phil, government wants those figures.
And the reality is, I think one of the things I've learned on my on this journey is that it is, I think, in my area, but I think it won't be typical I think it'll be everywhere, lots of other places as well. This is vastly underreported. There will be lots of farmers who catch somebody's dog off the sheep in the field. They have the dialogue about, well, it didn't touch them, and then the farmer will leave fairly grumpy, but you just, might just choose to leave it there. But actually, you still have to report those, and that's where I think the online option, it was dead quick, but it's documented and it's in those figures, and that is really, really important. So I'd really encourage people to pursue that, even if they don't want to escalate it even further.
Excellent. We got a couple of questions or comments that have come in. I'll just go through them now. I still wonder how we can help. This is from Eric. I still wonder how we can help. Can we cooperate in some way? Is there more that we can do? I mean, there's a lot of cooperation going on. What more can we do?
Is that from the dog trainer perspective?
I'm not sure. Yes, it is. It is from the clinical animal behaviorist. Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah. So what more can we do? I mean, in a way that relates then to a question that Fiona's put in the Q&A. What can we as farmers, vets, general public do to help reduce incidents until the penalties change? Should we still be asking owners to keep dogs on leads? Could vets do more to publicise more to their clients? So maybe that's, again, all part of this education and awareness thing. What can anyone do wherever they fit within this chain to try to spread the message?
Sorry, go on, Emily.
Well, I don't know if I know the answer, and I'll defer to David. One of the things that's sort of become apparent is the vast majority of dog owners, as I understand it, that are involved in dog attacks, of course, there's the accident that happens, but the vast majority of it is maybe the unreachable. But I think as you approach so many challenges in life, in some ways, is there could there be an attitude of, well, don't worry about the unreachable, and instead focus on exemplifying good behavior? So for example, and by therefore, the people that do make the effort to put their dogs on leads and are courteous, but really to continue to buy into that. So for example, if I see somebody walking through my sheep and I've seen that they've just put their dog on the lead, or they've made a real effort to get it really under control, I always make a point of acknowledging that and thanking them for that. Now, that's not going to make any difference maybe to the person that just lets it out of the back garden and it escapes. It doesn't make any difference. But perhaps that person, the next time they walk through that field and see somebody else with their dog off the lead, might be inspired to pay it, pay that gratitude forward. I don't know, maybe I'm living in hope and it's not like that, but I think if that's something farmers can do. I know people should just be doing it anyway, but really communicating what a difference, that we're grateful.
Some years ago as well, I remember doing a joint poster with, I'm sure it was through the BVA or the Sheep Veterinary Society, where we produced a poster for vets to put up in their surgeries, because, most people would take their dogs to a vet to have their primary injections and their annual boosters. And, so again, we've tried some of these things, and we probably need to pick some of them up more. There's more we can all do, I guess. Dave, you were going to come in, I think. Sorry.
Yeah, I would say if you're going to speak to somebody on about their dog or stuff like that, my top tip is be polite. And they may not realise you're doing anything. And if you're being polite, your attitude will affect their attitude back to you. Yeah. If you go in there shouting and bawling, the likelihood is they're taken by surprise and they're going to shout and bawl back to you, and it comes a slanging match and all that. Okay, so you ask politely, and if you don't engage, walk away. Mm-hmm. Just let the police know. Just take any number plates if it's safe like that, and maybe we can go and educate the dog owners and all that about that sort of stuff there with regards to that. Now, regards to the question from the clinical animal behaviorists, how can they help? I would probably say, we know the vast majority of our livestock attacks from dogs that escape from home. Emphasize boundaries, making them secure. If you're going to work all day, what are you doing with that dog? Is somebody else taking it for a walk? What's the security around your property? That sort of thing. I think that's how they can help, and make people understand the breed of dog they're buying, and particularly what its needs are. and all that. Because if you buy a husky, it looks nice, but it's no good in 2 up, 2 down, and in a block of flats somewhere. It needs exercise and stuff like that. So that's the sort of thing we could be doing with and all that, really.
You know, we had an example talk about the importance of communication and how communication can go wrong as well. We had an occasion just a week or so ago, I think, in the office where someone had phoned up where they'd had a conversation with a dog owner, and they'd walked through a field of sheep that were behind an electric fence, and it turned out that the dog owner felt that the electric fence was a bit offensive in that it was keeping them out. It was to keep the dog and the owner out. And it wasn't until the farmer explained that actually electric fence is there to keep the sheep in that it created a completely different attitude.
Yeah.
And again, sometimes we just assume that people know, and just that general engagement can help sometimes, can it? But,
well, yeah, it was land press used there, Phil, isn't it? You know, your members using it for an economic reason, and the people coming in for a leisure. You know, particularly in North Wales, that's when we see a lot of conflict around those land uses there.
Yeah, yeah.
Something that we try to do at home to reduce the risk, but it's just always have the time to remember it, is where that we've got sheep on footpaths. My other half will put a sign out when the sheep are present in that spot and take it away when they're not.
Yeah.
To just really, because I think signs that are there all the time, people become a little bit desensitized to them, and that's just something I think possibly has helped where we are. Yeah.
Judith Charlie, I know, has done a lot of work up in Lancashire on this subject as well, and then Philippa have both commented about the importance of really, you know, talking to people, thanking them when they're doing things well, and then Philippa's making the point that you know, if we get this right, maybe other responsible dog owners can help do some of that policing and enforcement for us as well, which I'm sure is right. And Jenny Deere has made a point here about you know, pet food shops, and again, there have been pet food companies, and some of the bigger pet food I can't remember what they call Pets at Home, I think was a big one that have had some engagement in this. But I guess there's a lot of very small and independent pet shops, aren't they? And getting to all of them is quite tough. And again, some of the bigger dog charities, Battersea Dogs Home and the RSPCA and others, the Kennel Club, they've all taken this quite seriously and been on side. And some of them have been heavily involved with the creation of this new legislation as well, I think, you know, so.
Well, unfortunately, I suspect that the real thing that will really make a difference, which has been one of the themes from the first two talk this evening, is a test case with a prosecution, and a dog gets destroyed or confiscated or whatever, and the fine's a bit meatier than it is at the moment, and somebody gets a ban. And actually, I think a lot of dogs will be on leads fairly quickly and gardens secure. Unfortunately, I think it'll probably that'll probably be the way. But hopefully our talks this evening have given everybody some ideas of how
absolutely
victims they get to that point.
Well, it's been excellent, actually. It's just coming up to 9 o'clock, actually. So we've been on for an hour and a half, and we must finish now. But I'd just like to thank you both. And if Dave was here, if Rob was here, I'd obviously thank him as well. But he's departed now. But listen, this is one of the it can be one of the most upsetting and depressing things that we deal with, and you be in the same boat. You know, it's not a nice thing to deal with. You know, when it happens, people are distressed and you know, stressed out, and it's a horrible thing, really. But you know, we know it's affecting a lot of people, and it's probably one of the most important things that we work on as well. So we've just got to keep on, and if we can get this legislation through, I think that's going to be a major step forward, as you've both said. So I'd just like to thank you again very, very much, and thank everyone for joining us this evening. This will be available, this webinar will be recorded and be available on the NSA website over the next few days as well, and we can use it as an ongoing resource. So thanks everyone for giving up a bit of time this evening, and we'll speak to you all again soon.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Take care, bye.
Bye-bye.